praised McGlinchey's play in the last game. Did you see the same thing? And you may or may not know he's a relatively controversial player in 49er fandom. He gets some criticism. What do you still think of his season overall?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know what others say, but I mean, I know coaching him, I got to work with him every day, and so we work on it together, and I'm not aware of that. But I do know that, we did work on some things last week, and he came in on Saturday morning, or it was, what's tomorrow, Friday, so it was Friday last week as well. He came in on Friday morning, and we had a great discussion looking at Max, looking at really more at Mike and things that he could have done, and he made a couple little tweaks in his pass sets that helped him, some things that we, it happens all the time. It happened with Trent this week. I mean, it gets away from you a little bit, gets away from me. Sometimes you're looking at schematics, you're looking at things like that, and you don't realize that fundamentally there's just this little thing that might help you just a little bit. Now, we had a plan for Max. Mike did a very good job when he had his reps and opportunities against him. We also had a plan for Max. It's like when we talk about Aaron Donald, those guys are great rushers. To say that somebody one-on-one did it, I'm not diminishing Mike. Mike did a good job, and I'm not diminishing it at all, but we also have a plan, and it's everybody contributes. And I think if you asked Mike, he'd say the same thing. We had chips, we had slides, we had this, we had that. We had a lot of different ways to try to neutralize a good player like that, because it's never just going to be, hey, you got him, here you go. And but Mike did, and part of it was some of the fundamental tweaks that he made during the week that helped him. And I think he went in with a good mindset, and we were fortunate with the way the game went, and did a really, really fine job. So I'm happy for Mike in the game that he played, but now it's this week, and all it takes is one play and two plays here and there, and it's the same thing. That's the life of an offensive lineman. It's like nobody knows the long snapper until the ball isn't snapped properly, and then everybody knows the long snapper. So that's the line. That's kind of an offensive lineman, and that's where Mike is right now.
Is there almost more pressure on the guys who aren't lined up next to an Aaron Donald or a J.J. Watt or a Max Crosby for them to hold up their end of the bargain while the focus is on that one outstanding defense?
There certainly can be. Yeah, there certainly can be. When you've decided to do something to focus to take away a guy, the other guys you're saying have to hold up. And so there's it all depends on where the guy is and what his skill set is and how you can handle him and how you're going to take care of him. That does do it. And the great thing for us as an offensive line is Kyle is so flexible with how we can adjust things to help linemen. And we've had to be, because you have to adapt to having Aaron Donald in your division. And if you just say, well, we're just going to let the chips fall, we're going to block Aaron Donald like we would any other three technique, you're in for a long day. And so, and some people do that, and they manage to win and do a good job. I'm not saying you have to account for them on every play. We've just decided, and so we started to create within our system the ability to be able to do it. And it's grown over time because Kyle, we've thought of ways, the linemen have suggested things, Kyle thinks of something, and then we try to incorporate it and find other ways to do some of the same things, maybe still allowing as much flexibility in the passing game as we can, and then still being able to either protect. And then the run game, accounting for, what they do to disrupt, being careful of what we run at or away from those guys. So it does put, though, to answer your question, a lot of pressure on the other guys, but that's the way it works. The good thing is those other guys also get help when they happen to draw JJ, or when they happen to draw Max, or when they happen to draw Aaron Donald, because he doesn't just exclusively line up on one side like Max did. The other guys benefit too. Hey, we're going to come help you too. So it spreads it out a little bit.
On McCaffrey's screen in the fourth quarter, game like 40 yards down the left sideline, Brunskill had that block. He had to get out on a push, I guess. We got fully outstretched. Is that a particularly tough assignment for Brunskill in that case? And what did you think of the effort he had?
Yeah, well, if your name's not Trent Williams, anytime you have to run about 20 yards to make a block, it's going to be a challenge, okay? So first of all, they're challenged that way. Secondly, when you have a rusher in your face and you've got to, you're going to block him for a second, then you're going to try and slip him and get out into the screen, and then in that process get there in time to make a block on a guy that was really pretty aggressive on Christian. I think when you watch screens, the thing to notice is if the guy that's catching the screen is way ahead of the offensive lineman, meaning that he's out here and we're still back here, that screen's going to have a hard time succeeding. So to get that block when you're that far away takes a lot of patience by that guy, and the lineman has to really go to get that block, which is what happened on that play. Normally you want to see the back and the guard coming out together. And when you see that, that's like one of the key timing points in the screen, because now whoever's coming to defend the screen, he's lined up for my big guys, right? Because they're not going to be running around in space all the time. That lines everything up for them. Then the back can set the block. When they're way ahead, then like happened to Dan, he's just running his butt off to get out there and then just laying out. I credit Dan. One of the few times I hugged a player on the sideline, I hugged Dan when he came over. I thought it was such a good block at a big point in the game. And also I thought it was a great effort to get out. I mean, it's what his job is, but it's not easy. And he did it, and he did it well. And I give a lot of credit to Christian, too, because Christian's run, he's a very good screen runner as a back, and he saw what was at hand, and he was able to just pause enough. You know, a young guy might have just caught the ball and ran, and Dan couldn't have made that block. Even with the situation as it was, he set the block up well.
How many hugs do you give out a year on average?
It's my first one in a long, and I don't remember the last one. How's that? So,
I think that was Brunskill's first game at left guard, or at least extensive game. I mean, how many snaps in a week will he get at left guard?
not. Because I think if he would have been the swing guard, which he is, but if he literally was not, like when Spencer was playing full time at right guard, if they hadn't been splitting time, Dan would have probably got 4 times, probably 16 reps a day at both guards. Okay, but because he was splitting time with Spencer, he was probably only getting 1 or 2, probably 4 to 5 reps a day. So maybe that's 15 reps in the week, maybe less at left guard. Now, Dan's played both positions. He's played left tackle. He's the one guy that can do it, but it's not easy to all of a sudden go out there, and it is a little bit, yes, you can brush your teeth with your opposite hand, but it's not comfortable for the first couple times that you do it. It's a little bit like that. It's a little bit backwards for a minute. But he he luckily has gotten reps at it and did a good job.
I think at the time of the draft, there was talk about Zakel and Poe playing center, at some point in the future. Have those guys gotten a lot of center snaps during the season?
Right. So they all took snaps starting in the preseason in quarterback center exchange early. Very little team reps because we had 2 or 3 guys that we were repping through the position. When we get to this point in the season, what happens is, the way it works, as long as you have 2 guys, as long as your backup center isn't playing all the time, which in this case Dan wasn't, you feel pretty good going into a game with 2 centers because he's not on the field all the time. But when both your guys that are your centers are on the field playing, you get a little bit nervous because you're now putting both of them at risk more. So now you have to say, so this week we have had to up the reps, and now they've actually started taking reps with the scout team, reps with not with the offense at center, but Dan takes reps, the second reps with the offense at center. But with the scout team, both Nick, because he's active, Poe is on the practice squad, so we're not repping him. Keith also is not, but McKivitz is another guy that's taken snaps for us. He was a guy that we had prepped for a lot last year as well and in the past. So Colton's taken reps at center. So they were splitting reps inside. So between Nick and Colton, we've got a 3rd and a 4th center if need be to at least I think they do more than get us out of the game. For example, when they used to only let us dress 7 linemen, I've had a couple games where we had to put a tight end at tackle at the end of the game. That's getting you out of a game where you're holding on and you're not getting out of the game very well. These guys could actually go in and snap the ball and have some success playing center, albeit they just haven't had a lot of reps.
Anything else? All right, thanks, Coach.
It's good. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.